ready for another live. Right off the bat, I'll apologise in advance because I'm probably going to piss everyone off by coughing a lot, but got COVID, them's the breaks. So today I'm going to be chatting to my friend Harry. He'll request to join in a minute and I'll drag him in. There he is, giving me a wave now. Just to give you a little introduction to Harry before I bring him in. One of the more inspirational guys that I know. He's got a lot of cool stories to tell you guys. And I would say probably one of my friends that I've formed over the two pillars of what every friendship should be built on, and that is gaming and a love for MMA, which is why we get on. So if you, Harry, there should be a button kicking around somewhere saying request to join, and I'll pull you in. Hey to everyone else who's watching. There we go. And again, apologies in advance if I start coughing my lungs up at some point. It's just the nature of COVID, unfortunately. Pretty shit. Just waiting for Harry to give us the request to join. Give us a sec, folks. Unless I can pull him in. Let's have a look if there's a way for me to actually pull him in here. Oh, he's saying it's not letting him. Right. Give us a sec. Fucking technology. Invite to join. Oh, here we go. Right. Here we go. Try this, Harry. You should be getting... Oh, wait. Harry must upgrade their app. You got to upgrade your app, Harry. You've got like some old swag version of it, apparently. Which is quite funny. Who knew? Apparently, you can't join if you got some swag old version, but there you go. All right, might as well shoot the shit until Harry updates that. So how's everyone getting on? Anyone else managing to catch COVID at the tail end of all this like me? No? Hopefully not. Hopefully you've all been luckier than I have to catch it when it's almost sodded off altogether. But there you go. Let's have a look if we still got Harry in there now. I suppose it's the equivalent of like me having the PS4 and all my mates having a PS5, and when I join I just feel outclassed. Harry's got like the PS4 swag version of the app at the minute by the looks of it. Let's have a look. There we go. Might be able to invite him now. I'm going to give this a... There we go. Wait for it. Any second now. We should have Harry in. Hey, man. How are we getting on?
There we go. It's not quite loaded for me on my end now. It's still spinning around. I didn't know I had to update. There we go.
There we go.
I can see now.
How you getting on, man? You doing good?
Yeah, doing well, mate. Doing well. I didn't know I had to update it or anything. I pressed your name in the corner, and then it said requested to join, but it was dimmed, and I was just hammering it,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't do anything. I thought, oh no, I put him on the spot now. He's gonna have to try and save some time.
You know, that's exactly me when it comes to tech. There's always some spanner in the works, and it's just like, oh, god damn it. Like,
See,
at the
it's come
minute.
up before for me. It's come up before for me saying like send an invite, like or request to join random people's lives when I watch them.
Yeah.
But for some reason, of all the ones that
Yeah. Sod's Law,
There
you
it
probably
goes.
got like an upgrade literally just launched or something like that, and it just threw the spanner in the works for you. It'll probably boot us out and make me update it at some point. So at least we've got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
So Harry, for my mates that may not know you, just tell us a little about yourself. I gave you a little preface of saying that you're probably one of the more inspirational athletes that I've ever come across, but I didn't want to oversell it, and I figured I'd let you explain a little bit more about who you are and what you're doing. So, floor is yours, my friend.
So to all Costa's followers and Costa's friends, I'm Harry Williams. I'm a limb different athlete who's competed in MMA, boxing, and now I'm doing like bits of CrossFit and stuff like that as well. I have a club hand, as you can see. That's my limb difference, meaning the radial bone is missing. So whereas you've got the both bones that side and that side, I've only got the one. If I can turn my arm, I've only got the one here, so I've got any bone there. I also did have a thumb when I was born, but that was amputated because it had no bones in, so there wasn't much I could really do with it. And then since then, I've just had like loads of operations and stuff like that on it, and eventually it was nothing worked. Doctor said it was the worst case scenario the army's ever seen, which was quite a compliment from a retired surgeon, I suppose. And then we decided to crack on with it, and as people like yourself know, I've kind of grown up in this game through my dad, and as I can see a few people from that I know from MMA tuning in now. So I kind of grown up in MMA, a bit of a different upbringing compared to most people's. Like my bedtime stories weren't Barney the Dinosaur and Bear in the Big Blue House. It was The Rites of Passage and Choke by Hicks and Gracie. That was my upbringing. Yeah, just a very like sports centric upbringing, along with my brother who used to compete as well, and my dad who used to compete. And he was a pro boxer, black belt jiu-jitsu, black belt judoka, and then he opened his gym a long time ago, and it's kind of just been life ever since then.
And I got to ask from like, because out of my followers, you're going to have a lot of people that are not involved in the MMA world, and they'll know, and I mean even the people that are involved in the MMA world will know that it's a very stressful, very frightening experience, like just competing in anything really, but in combat sports especially. So we've got to ask, like, what in God's name, like, pushed you to do it outside of like the obviously the environment you were brought up in? To because a lot of people get brought up in that environment and do it as like a hobby or something like that, but you actually took the next step and went into being a competitor. What pushed you into that side of the sport?
Well, like for years, everyone would always just assume that like growing up in it, you eventually come part of it. But it was actually like the last thing that my mum and dad really wanted. Not because I was far from being wrapped in cotton wool. I was far from anything in that side of things because it was just I was a young lad, same as my brother, and I'd always want to do what he wanted to do. Um, and then it got to when I was about 15, 16, when I started to like get more of a ventured interest in the sport, and I wanted to get involved more and wanted to basically be able to defend myself because I mean, one, I'm not the biggest, I'm not the tallest, and having a disability on top of that, you can kind of look like a weak link. So if you can surprise someone out in the street, you never know what might happen. They might get the shock of their life. So it's a fun little thing to be able to have as well. But on top of that, like I just eventually got training. Like my mum and dad were always like, "What if someone fell on your hand in the gym? What if something happened?" And it actually did happen a few years ago. Tom Morkill, if you're watching, he knows all about that. He sent me to hospital. I did, and then I ended up like the years went by and I got more into writing about the sport and stuff like that. And then after I started training more and more, like we tried to get people to match me when I was like 17, 18, 19. But then as soon as like they heard about my hand, they were like, "Oh no," because it's a lose-lose either way. Like if you beat a guy with one hand, you beat a guy with one hand. If you lose, you get beat by a guy with one hand. You've been beat by a guy with one hand. So I can like a lot of people would be like, "Yeah, but that shouldn't matter." But I do understand where they come from with that mindset of like because I don't look at myself like that, and I've always been brought up around people who are like fully able-bodied. So I get that mindset completely. It's same when people ask questions in the street. They're like, "Oh, I don't know I don't know how to operate around it. I don't know, like, can I ask?" And they don't know how to operate around it because it's not something you come across every day. Like, how many days in a week do you walk down the street and see someone with a hand like mine? It's not all the time. So I understand when people are a bit cautious. Um, so then that went on, and then we ended up just thinking, you know what? We'll put the competitive stuff behind us. And I just ended up focusing on training, bettering myself, getting more confident, trying to get stronger, and just like becoming a better martial artist in the gym and being able to like take on the fundamentals classes and stuff like that and take them to one side whilst my dad could teach the pros and stuff in the cage and stuff like that. And then guys like Callum Newborn, who had a serious knee injuries or he could have really took the sport by storm in his weight. And he was training for boxing matches, and he had a couple of boxing matches himself. And then I was training with him for one of them, and I really hung in there with him. And he was always like a bit of a bigger lad than me. I was just a lot faster, so I was always thrown in there as like a bit more of a cardio test with him in them later rounds to see if he could keep up with me while I'm slipping about.
Yeah.
And then from there, like I just ended up putting a couple of the guys like down on one knee and tiring them out. And then I was driving home with my dad one time from the training, and he just said, "Why don't we try and get you a boxing match in, Harry?" And it was the last thought on my mind. I was like, "No, it's fine. I'll just carry on coaching." He was like, "Well, no. Like I've fought, your brother's fought. It's only kind of right we finally get you a fight now." And I went, and I took a second because I'd become so comfortable in my environment of just this is what I do. I was like, and then I went, fuck it, let's do it, let's go for it then. Let's see how it goes. Ended up training for that for a good 7 to 8 weeks, and then 5 days before, the guy who I was supposed to fight, who was my height, my weight, my everything like identical, excuse apart from the hand, he pulled out. I ended up getting someone with a lot of experience, taller, a southpaw, just everything the opposite of what I was training for. And then we had to bring my brother into the training camp for the last 5 days, and he knocked the hell out of me for the last 5 days. But then we went in there and got the win.
I was going to say, like, outside of all of that, that was a very impressive boxing performance. I remember watching that, and I remember watching it and being like absolutely in awe of the way you'd adapted your boxing style to compensate for your hand, in that you were switch hitting very, very smoothly. Like, you know, you're given a lot of angles and stuff like that, and you're fighting like with your hand being both a jab hand and a cross, because you would switch and then banging with the cross, you know. And realistically, when you go into, as I think you put it in that documentary, 1.5-handed man against an able-bodied guy, that's a huge disadvantage to go into. You know, no matter how you dress it up, it's basically in boxing you've got two weapons, being your left hand and your right hand. Three if you count your brain, but basically outside of the weapons that you can physically damage someone with, it's limited pretty much to your hands. So you were at a massive detriment in terms of that, and you overcame it, obviously.
Yeah.
And in terms of overcoming obstacles, there's a lot of obviously physical adaptations that you have to make, but the thing that I was really interested in was like your mindset going into it, because I think no matter what, when it comes to competition, the biggest kind of hurdle people have is mental. You know, it's like the thought of going in there is a lot more daunting than actually doing it. It's a scary thing. The weeks up to the fight are scary. You know, people tend to not sleep well and all that. So knowing that you had like what would be the normal nerves, on top of the fact that you are effectively going into the unknown and entering a competition where you're physically disadvantaged, what was it like trying to overcome those additional mental hurdles?
It was weird. Like when I first told people like I was going to be competing, a lot of people were like, "Oh, was it a Paralympic boxing match or something?" And I was like, "No," and they were like, he's got like two normal hands," and I was like, "Yeah." And then there was a few like ovens and irons. When I told my mum, she'd call me an idiot straight away. Like this is mother's care, innit? I'd like the t-shirt, by the way, when I popped on
Oh
the
yeah,
screen.
bam.
Sorry.
We're going to give these a shout out at the end. So if you
No
remind
problem.
me at the end, and I'll model it for you, and we can
Will
get
do.
some folks buying them.
Will do. So yeah, the mindset, like I'd never been in that environment, like in the gym and stuff. People never really treat me any differently with my hand, but I knew like internally it's always something I'd have to try and battle, and I always have to adapt. Like when you're in grappling and I'd try and come across and go for a like a Kimura or something. Like I have a favoured side because I can reach further, and just like adapt on hammer locks and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But with the boxing, like entering that, I tried not to listen to a lot of people, as ignorant as that might sound, because a lot of people's advice was making me more like tension, giving me more tension. People
yeah,
saying, "Oh, like when you get there, you'll get this feeling," or "When you're on the way down there, you'll get this feeling," and then other people asking about like Paralympic and stuff like that, and thinking I wouldn't be able to do it. I just thought I'm just going to stop asking people now, and because this is a totally different kind of experience. I think there's only on one hand, pardon the pun, you could probably count how many guys have done it, like the Nick Newells and the Keith Miners in the MMA world that have really been in there with one hand and really conquered it. So there wasn't a bunch of people I could really go to for advice and stuff. I just had to make sure that like I was going to go in there and nothing was going to stop me, because I'd sold a bunch of tickets. I'd had the Channel 4 thing when they came down to the gym. Um, and then given going over to the camp in America and stuff, I
Yeah.
had to get it Facebook Live, and there was 3,500 people watching that. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to go in here, and there's no fucking way I'm going to go in here and this guy's going to beat me. There is no way. Like, from the minute I was at the bottom of the stairs in the Ritz to walking out, I just remember thinking, there's no way this guy's going to beat me in front of people here. There's no way. And I just had to keep drilling that into my mind, like, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do it. That was it, simple as.
Yeah, well, to be fair, that's probably the best and healthiest mentality you can have in that kind of scenario, because a lot of people will talk themselves out of the competition before the competition starts, and you see it, and it's horrible to say, but you see it with a lot of people where they've talked themselves past the point of having confidence in themselves, and they're doubting themselves. So when they face adversity, they'll crumble, and it's not necessarily like a physical end point for them. They're not at the point where they can't physically take anymore. They're at the point where mentally they can't take anymore and they break.
Yeah.
And that's a very real thing. Like, I remember one vivid like thought of that in my own mind when I was fighting, where it was against Liam James, and it was a quick fight. There wasn't even like a long thing, but for that fight, I was nervous because it was my first fight on a big stage. And I remember when I went for a takedown, he got on top, and I remember thinking like, ah, fuck's sake, this is not going to be good. And then like having that doubt in my mind is the doubt that a lot of people will break on. They'll just lay there and take a beating, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
But to have that mentality for you to basically say, right, that's it, I'm not gonna. You need to have that hardened mentality when you're in that scenario, because otherwise, the first sign of adversity, you're gonna crumble. You're gonna look for a way out. So for you to talk yourself into that point is probably one of the main factors on like why you're so dominant in that boxing match. Because I mean, I don't think I've ever seen someone land so many punches with I mean with so few hands, basically, is the best way to put it. It was mad.
The mad thing about it was, like, I was swinging so many left hands, like, the next day. My left arm was on fire. It was killing me the next day, that I booked off work just because I thought, I can't be typing and answering phones and stuff. My arm was killing me. But I threw that many left hands at him that it wasn't even the left hand that did the shot. He said it was the right one. I came up with an uppercut and caught him with that bone, like that one wrist bone. He said that was the one that made him turn away. So I've been throwing these for like 3 rounds, and it wasn't even the left hand that did the business. It was the right.
Well, again, that's, to be fair, they say that a lot, like in terms of boxing and stuff like that. It's usually the shot that you don't expect or the shot you don't see that does the damage. And it's a fairly reasonable assumption for him that he's not going to get banged out by your half hand. And the fact that you actually got him with that is pretty. That's like a coup de grace. So quite a little good feather in your cap in terms of like promoting limb difference, literally bludgeoning someone with that limb.
Yeah, disability is ability, man.
Yeah, big time. The other thing I was going to talk to you about, because you mentioned it very briefly at the beginning, you're talking about your training in general, is your CrossFit training that I've seen you do at the minute. And I just got to put it out there, like, I've been watching a lot of your lifts and stuff, especially your cleans and things like that, and I have technique envy in terms of like the way you're hitting those. So firstly, talk to us a little bit about your kind of your CrossFit training, how you're enjoying it and stuff like that. But then specifically with the adjustments that you have to make, like, are there any companies that you want to shout out that are providing the kind of instruments for you to adapt to this kind of training?
It's something I'm very, very new to be honest. I've just wrote a big piece about it on disabilityability.com, because I've just pretty much had my first year in CrossFit this past week. It was just something I'd always wanted to get stronger and always wanted to get bigger. On my left side obviously is going to be stronger and more shape than my right hand side, but if I could do anything from my right hand side, that was the goal, to strengthen it up as much as possible. And obviously there's only so much natural strength you can put into MMA. You do need some strength conditioning to it. So I was at a gym for 2 years working strength conditioning, and I just hit all my goals there. And there was a coach who was there at the time of strength conditioning called Lee Newborn, who now he's a coach over at Grit Zone CrossFit, where I'm doing it, and he's been quite instrumental in all of my like lifting training and stuff like that, because I hit all my goals, and I'd given CrossFit a lot of shit in the past. I've got to say, I did give it a lot of stick. I'd watched the Fittest on Earth documentaries on Netflix. I'd watched this stuff and like admirable about how they did it and stuff. But I was always like, it's just all crazy guys running up and down with chairs and tables in their hands and like stupid stuff. And then I just thought, you know what, like I just kind of viewed it in the same kind of mindset as like MMA. Like it's an extreme sport in a way. Like there's so many injuries because it's a competition-based sport. Like how many guys do we know with ACL tears and new knees and shoulders and stuff? It's bound to happen in like intense competitive sports. So I decided to give it a go and just see where I could kind of go along with it. And obviously I've had to adapt on the fly and in the middle of classes, try and figure out what I can and can't do with my arm. But Olympic lifting was something I always wanted to try and do. And my mindset is very much like anti-disability in that sense. Like I don't like this. If I have to adapt in a class and I'm losing time, I get so annoyed at my hand because I'm like, I don't want it to be there to prevent me from doing anything at all. But of course it will. It'll have the times when it will. And then I just thought, I'll just try and do squat cleans and stuff and try and get up with one hand. And then I thought, no, let me try and use my hook, and just kept the weight light and just built a foundation on that of starting light. Because where the hook is placed on, it acts as my hand.
Yeah.
Whereas you would come up and spin your hand round. I've got to make sure that the hook comes up and spins round as well, so my arms can end up like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is like I've got to get enough height to get that round first, to then drop down. So a lot of it is timing. It's timing, repetition, consistency, and a lot of it is just figuring it out and trying not to get hurt in the process, really.
Yeah, to be fair, that's a pretty good mindset for CrossFit in general. And I was very much like the same sort of mentality as you. I was never into CrossFit. And as a training methodology, there's probably better things you can do in terms of like specificity, but it's a lot of fun. You know, you can't deny it. It's a good way to get strong and fit, and it is fun. And I went through the same thing. Like I watched a bunch of the documentaries and remember thinking like, I want to be able to do that. They can do everything, you know. And like, so just basically, as you're saying, figuring out where limiting factors are and trying to remove them. For me, it's just being old and stiff, you know. So basically, trying to get a bit more mobility in.
Like the one thing I'd noticed as well through like my year doing it is that whenever I was going back on the mats, I was a lot stronger because of the cardio in terms of like throwing, not just like going for a run and doing road work or hill sprints, doing cardio as well as throwing weights above your head and stuff like that. When I'm going in the gym and I'm just high crotching fools for days, just like hooking on like gas tank there, engine there, just throwing fuels around the mat. It's like it was all there. So it kind of like complemented it in a way as well.
Yeah, well, it's quite a common duality there with MMA and CrossFit. You get a lot of people that are in MMA that use CrossFit as their strength and conditioning, because from a mental standpoint, it's quite a good like mesh. Because in CrossFit, you're tired, you've got to go, you've got to lift heavy, you know, you've got to push, and it's very, very common in the MMA world that even if you're sparring, but especially in competition, that you're going to have an adrenaline dump and you're going to be tired. But at the end of the day, if someone like attacks you, you still got to be able to defend. You still got to pick them up, slam them. You know, you still got to be able to shift a pretty heavy resistant weight against its will. You know, so it's not the two do go together very well in that sense. I think it's quite a natural kind of marriage between the two, really.
Yeah, you never really have a moment to stand still in either.
Yeah. Well, we've been using the hero workout Murph. Minus the weighted vest, because there's no chance of doing that with a vest. But as a fitness test once a month, and it's awful. But there is that feeling of overcoming it. That you're like, yeah, made it. I got through that. You know, I'm dreading to think what my post-COVID time is going to be. After it's probably going to add an extra like 15 minutes onto it. But we'll see how we get on.
Yeah.
Another thing I was going to ask you is like, 'cause you kind of touched on the competition side in terms of like. Combat competition and your CrossFit training and stuff. But if you weren't doing combat competition, what would you be doing with your time? Would CrossFit be something that you'd be looking to progress in, or what would you do?
Probably so. I don't think if it wasn't for like combat competition, I don't think that much would be different. I'd still be doing the writing work. I'd still be probably engaging in more talks and stuff around schools and stuff, like more than I already am doing. Except at the minute with everything going on in the world, it's kind of hard to get bookings in schools and stuff. But I think competitively, I think I'd probably end up. I couldn't sit down. I don't know what I'd be doing, but I couldn't be sitting down doing nothing. That's for sure. I am hoping that after all this happens, I do want to get back in the gym, and I do want to start doing more like jiu-jitsu competitions and grappling competitions more so than anything. Like I'm doing the CrossFit Open at the minute, and
Nice.
with like the first 2 weeks of them, this is my first time doing it. And I'm doing the adaptive division, which is the first year that they're doing adaptive division.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's very different for everyone. Like everyone's going and kind of blindfolded on this and not really knowing what the score is and just seeing what we can do. But so far so good. That's going pretty well. I think there's one more week of that, and I think I looked at my ranking before. I think I'm 43rd of 117 people. So that's
Nice.
not too bad for my first ever go
I was
at it.
going to say,
So
yeah, that's because if you think about the people that are doing the Open, they're not like your average athlete. You know, they're
yeah.
pretty. They're going to be
Mhm.
generally like the best people from their respective gyms.
Yeah,
Realistically, you know, it's not going to be like your average person that rocks up to a CrossFit gym and just figures they're going to dabble in it. You know, so
yeah,
you're a pretty good company there.
yeah. It's interesting. I just thought I nearly didn't enter it, to be honest. And I spoke to Lee Newborn, one of the coaches there, and he was like, "Well, if you don't do it, it's like it's the first year it's ever there, so you could always say it's like you're like one of the first to do it." And I was thinking like, yeah. And then I was like ignoring all the posts and stuff that people were talking about doing it in the gym, in the group chats and stuff. And then then it was like, I think it was like 1 a.m. Friday morning. And I was just laying in bed and I just thought, if I don't do it for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to regret it because it's all I'm going to see. So I might as well give it a shot and see how it goes. And it's working out pretty well so far. So see how
Yeah.
it goes.
To be fair, most of the best decisions in life tend to be made at that 1 a.m. in the morning type. Fuck it, let's just go and see what happens.
It was
You know?
exactly that. It was a fuck it moment. It was a fuck it moment.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, funnily enough, that the fuck it moment, as we say, is like something that I really try and get on top of when it comes to people trying to diet and lose weight, because there it's like the absolute kryptonite. It will be basically, and it will start from something small. Someone will eat a biscuit and they'll be like, fuck it, I might as well eat the rest of the biscuits, or wherever it might be. Outside of that context, it's actually a pretty good thing to have. You know, you'd be like, fuck it, because it's very much, if you don't try, you'll never know, and you'll always regret it. You know,
Yeah,
because the thing is, if you try and you don't manage it, so what? You know, you tried it, and you know that it's better to know, like, okay, I gave it my best, didn't work out, fair enough, compared to someone that will look back years later and be like, I could have been, I could have been the greatest. I could have done this. I could have done that.
yeah,
There's nothing worse than having that kind of doubt, like,
yeah.
hanging over yourself.
And those fuck it moments are different than hold my beer moments. They're
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
the fuck it moments that we're talking about are usually the ones that lead onto success and growing as a person, not lying in hospital because you've had too many
Yeah,
beers and thought, watch me do a 180 flip on skateboard, like
yeah,
4 or 5 beers down. That's a different kind of fuck it hold my beer moment. That's a different kind.
Well, that tends to happen, and this was in a book that I read years and years ago, and they never named the person who it was. So all I know is a British heavyweight boxer who had retired, and he was doing underground unlicensed matches because he lost his license, wherever it might be, and he was in the ring, and they were asking the crowd who wants to come out and fight him, and some random drunk dude came out and said, "Yeah, I'll do it." Egged on. It was a very much like hold my beer type moment. The dude didn't even have trunks. He basically took the fight in his underpants and come out, but actually banged out the British boxing champ, knocked him out. And whoever the author of the book didn't name who it was, and I've been dead curious. I'm trying to work out like process of elimination, who it
Yeah,
was that got knocked out in this underground fight, but still haven't been able to track him down. But that's probably the only case in history of a hold my beer moment that's actually gone all right, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's very few and far between in those moments. They make great YouTube videos, but that's usually about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like 99 times out of 100, if some random drunk in a crowd decides to go and have a scrap with like an older but still professional boxer, you're gonna get tuned up a little bit. You know, it's
Hmm.
that's not a scenario that usually works out well for the dude, but there you
Yeah.
go. The stars aligned for him on
Hmm.
that particular occasion. The other thing I was going to ask you, we mentioned my shirt that I'm rocking at the minute. Tell us a little about your company.
So it's we call it the Project DIA, or the DIA for short. It means disability is ability. Um, Basically, it's just all about raising, not so much well, it is raising awareness for like disability, but it's trying to do it in a different light than just like, oh, be aware of it. It's trying to change the name of it because, for instance, like if you hear someone with a disability, say you're going to meet your friend and you say, oh, like my brother's got a disability, the first thing you think of is like wheelchair kind of disability because you think of disabled bays and that's always got a wheelchair logo in it and stuff like that. Um, so what we're trying to do with it is just change the way people view disabilities and change the way people see people with limb differences, and that we're not all like one trick ponies and we all like need help all the time. We are capable of doing things. And if you look on like on the disabilityisability.com website, you'll see like the columns that I've wrote about my experiences that people have like shared and had, and that have kind of gone viral in a sense, and especially like ones about school experiences and stuff. Um, and then there's like a special features where I'll interview people like this and talk to them about their differences, like people who have lost theirs in life, not just being born with it, like people like me, and what they've had to overcome. And they're always very, very strong stories. And people who enter the world with two limbs, in our world with two limbs, and try and help people and their stories as well, because that's a totally different thing for them. Um, but I got involved in this community 8 years ago when I really started to accept my difference for what it was. And then after that, I started to like go over to America and work with kids over there, and then get involved with other charities like Lucky Fin Project, Novability, Reach, No Limits, and all the camps over there. And I thought we need something over here because they're a lot more outgoing Americans, are a lot louder, a lot more enthusiastic, and we're quite reserved as a nation, and we're quite like we'll look at something but we won't ask, and that's
Yeah,
just quite reserved, is in our nature. So I just ended up thinking we need something over here, and always writing has always been my strong suit through like interviewing you in the past about fights and going to shows and seeing you there and covering shows and stuff like that. And I thought maybe I could do something similar in the disability community and share stories, share my stories, and basically just try and raise some awareness about that. And that's led to talks in schools, in like sports classes in schools. I do a lot of sports work with Swinton High School now with their sports classes who are covering like obstacles in sports and just trying to get a deeper insight, like conversations like this, like an open forum where kids get to ask questions and stuff like that. So it's all about raising awareness and trying to change the game of it, really.
yeah. And I mean, I suppose with 2020 being what it was, you didn't have much choice to get out and about over to the States and stuff like that.
No,
Is that something that's on your horizon for the future as soon as things open up again, like getting yourself back out there?
yeah, I really like. I've got a lot of friends over there now, like scattered all over the place. Where I'll go to the camp in the summer, and then they're all trying to pull me in different directions. Like, you come home with us, you come to Tennessee, come to this place, come to that place, and like I've got that many friends over there now that I do have some connections where I can go and spend a week at another camp, or I can go and spend a week with another family and just help like their kid in day-to-day things like how to tie laces, how to cut an onion, how to cook a meal and stuff like that, like with like a bit of adaptation to it. But yes, I do love it over there. It's a crazy nation, especially right now. Like it's
Yeah,
absolutely, it's a melting pot at the minute. But I'm really looking forward to being able to get out there. And this summer looks like it's got no chance of being able to again with all the restrictions and just the level that it is still over there. So hopefully, the sooner the better I can get out there, and hopefully I can get back in schools over here sooner as well.
yeah. Fingers crossed for you on that front.
Hopefully.
It's something that I've always wanted to go over to the States, but I would have to have a very short-lived time over there, because when it comes to the food and stuff out there, I would just eat myself to death within like a few weeks.
I know you are a foodie. I know you are
Oh
a
yeah,
foodie, my
yeah.
friends.
Left to my own devices, that would be it. I would be all about that £600 life. So it's, America is just not the move for me, man. Like as much as I would love to go, it would have to be like a week, and then I'd have to come back, and that would be it. You know, and it would be
Dude,
it.
a week isn't long enough. Like you got to indulge in the food. You've got to take time to get over the jet lag because if you do it straight away and come back, the jet lag's going to be too like double. You've got to get over there, live the life for a week or so, dig into the food, gain those extra pounds, gain them while you're over there,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
come back, man. You've got to live it. You've got to live as an American.
yeah.
You've got to get a gun. You've got to do all sorts of stuff when you're over there, man. You've got to do it.
Well, that was, to be fair, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a gunslinger, like proper Wild West style. You know, so if I had a permit to carry a gun in America, I wouldn't carry it like a sensible person. I would literally have a holster,
Spin
like
it.
double side, yeah, and like, you know, be doing all the tricks, like, and then have a cowboy hat, maybe one of those long trench coats. You know,
Yeah.
you might as well. You can't half-ass it. You got to go all
No,
in.
exactly, man. You got to go full American. You got to do it.
Yeah, and like a cheeseburger in one holster and like a hand cannon in the other. Boom,
Exactly.
sorted. Then I'm
Exactly.
set. Um, I was going to say, so for you now, so obviously you're talking about a lot of situations where you're going and you're speaking to people that have, I just joked to it, Red Dead Redemption courses. I'm all over that. That would be the move. He's talking about you like going and helping people do like day-to-day things. What advice would you have for someone that had limb difference and wanted to compete, be it in a combat sport or any sport in general? What kind of like tenets of advice would you give to them?
Take your time with it. It's a long process, and it's a lot of getting annoyed with yourself, a lot of like looking at your difference and getting annoyed with it and thinking like, for fuck's sake, why me? Like, why have I got this? Like, for instance, the first times I was started going to the gym and was trying to do kettlebell lifting and stuff like that, or like shoulder shrugs, and before I even had my hook for my hand, I'd hold on to it, it'd rip at my hand and like it'd really pull it down, and the pain was excruciating, and I'd get like 4 or 5 reps of it, like solid done, compared to my left that'd still be easy to go. And it's just a lot. It just takes a lot of time it's a lot of adaptation, man. It is a lot of adaptation. Like for me, for boxing and MMA especially, a lot of like the old heads kind of frowned upon it at the time, but because of my hand, I had to use my left as a jab and the power shot as well. So I did
Yeah,
have to switch stance a lot. I had to get comfortable in both southpaw and orthodox and switch in and out of them and moving angles. And I spent a lot of time working on that myself. And even with takedowns and stuff, like learning how to shoot proper and practicing that proper technique and figuring out like, right, he might be able to do that submission that way. I can't quite do it that way. What kind of works for me that isn't impervious for someone else and someone can't defend it? Because if there's like for me, my hand, 'cause it's a bit shorter, people can't really get an underhook on it properly because I can so easily loop it back out that
yeah,
kind of works against me. But it's just figuring stuff like that out, like just on the fly, you'll figure stuff out. You know, especially when you're in the deep waters a little bit. It just takes a lot of time, and development is not. It can, as you probably tell anybody when you're coaching them, it's not going to happen overnight. It's repetition, 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 and even more so in my time. Sometimes you got to go double the effort of the able-bodied people in the class just to figure out.
yeah. That makes sense. To be fair. The other thing, I suppose, the last thing I wanted to chat to you about, which does always tickles me, was I mentioned at the beginning while you were updating that we formed our friendship based on the two most important pillars of everything, being MMA and a love for gaming.
Mm-hmm.
And you have like some of the best gamer tags that I've seen. I've seen your name change. So we've had is it Triple H at the minute, which I
Yeah,
thought
it's Triple H now.
was a pretty good one. But I do feel that you missed a trick. You were a Game of Thrones fan, weren't you? As well, I think everyone's a Game of Thrones fan.
I saw it up to season 6, and then I couldn't watch it anymore.
So you would have seen Corin Halfhand. I think you were missing a trick there.
Good
That
shout.
was like,
Good shout.
I know. So I figured I would put that forward for your next like gamer tag. To be fair, because I think
I
that's
mean,
it.
I'd had Heel-Turn Harry for a long, long time from when I was
Yeah.
when the PS4 just came out, and I thought, is he Triple H? I'm glad you like it.
Go on,
I'm
Jake.
glad you like it. And I needed a change, and I was trying all these other ones. I tried like Token Crip. I tried that one, and we kept rejecting it.
Yeah.
And then I just ended up like Cripple H, and it stuck. It just stuck. So I thought it's catcher. It's catcher. So
Yeah.
every time I log on now, I've got the bottle of water. I'm screwing it up. I'm out there with it.
To be fair, when I saw your name had changed, that I lost my shit. You know, that's absolutely brilliant. To be fair, that's basically all the stuff I wanted to go for, Harry. So if people wanted to find you or to learn more about disability, firstly, what's your tag on Insta for anyone that's on here that wants to add you?
For me on Instagram, it's at Harry Williams MMA. You can find me on Instagram, obviously on Twitter at Harry_Williams. And the DIA is on Twitter as well at Project DIA, and the same on Facebook, I believe. And disabilityisability.com for any articles, any columns, any questions you've got as well. We have a contact page in there. You can fire questions over discreetly, or even slide into my DMs and do what you gotta do.
Sweet. And if anyone wanted to buy some swag merch like I'm rocking here, same thing, disabilityisability.com or?
Yep, you can head to disabilityisability.com. I am actually resorting out the UK provider at the minute. My US provider is still up and running, but my UK provider I've had to change just because of COVID and stuff like that. Business is falling out, so I'm working on getting a UK one sorted. But if you get to me directly, I can always personally sort you one out. That's not a problem.
Sweet. If you could put in a request for him to do some red t-shirts as well, I know a guy who will be taking you up on some of those, so I'll keep an eye out for those. Awesome. Thanks for doing this, Harry. You know, it's always good to catch up and have a good chat. I'm glad you're doing all right through all of this shitty world scenario that we're dealing with at the minute.
And you, man. One thing, was it Bama 5 you fought
at? I think it was Bama 5 and Bama 6. I was on.
What's mad is that like Bama 5, we're the lad fighting Rob Mills on Bama 5. And I remember I sold my BMX to get a ticket to Bama 5 at the Enion Arena. And it's mad that like that was 10 years ago in February.
Jesus. We lost you there for a sec, Harry.
Did you need me to restart? So, yeah, like as I was saying, like you fought at Bama 5 at the arena 10 years ago. And then here we are like 10 years later doing Instagramming and not playing Destiny together because I hate Destiny.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Mad, all these years later, man.
God damn, 10 years. That feels like, don't I feel old? That's a long ass time ago.
You're a veteran, man. You're a veteran of the old school.
Yeah, well, you know what? To be fair, that's one of the things that makes me laugh. Like a lot of people are saying, like, do you fancy fighting again? And it's like I say the same thing with anyone that's competed at some point. They'll always want to compete. You know, you'll be like, oh, you know, maybe I can do it again. But I say, then I look at someone like, say, Jack Grant, who trains with us intermittently. Like I grapple with him once or twice, and you look at someone like that who's younger, bigger, stronger, longer reach, absolutely amazingly skilled in every aspect, and you think, fuck me, I do not fancy going back and having to deal with young guys like that. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's good in a sense, like getting to train with a lot of these young guys. It kind of keeps you honest to the point where you realize, like, yeah, okay, I'm getting a bit older, you know, and these kids are getting good, man. They're real good these days. So as much as I look back and think, oh, maybe I can have another one, I do get a healthy dose of reality now and again, which keeps me from doing anything crazy, from having one of those hold my beer moments.
Well, at least you got to say that you fought on a Paul Daly card, mate. At least you got to say that.
Yeah. You know, to be fair, it's hard to not feel upstage when Paul Daly basically decapitates someone on the same card as you.
Yeah.
But it was a good card, to be fair, and that particular one. So there was in Manchester and then in London. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been the one in Manchester. I got to share a sauna cutting weight with Frank Trigg and a couple of those guys, which was probably the most absolute starstruck that I've been. I sat in a sauna with Frank Trigg talking about his gym at the time and stuff like that. And Ninja was in there. And then Shogun popped his head in to like speak to him in Portuguese about like cutting weight and stuff. Mm-hmm. And when Shogun opened the thing and popped his head in, like literally everyone in the sauna just like looks. This is when Shogun was like on top of his game. Everyone just looked up like,
that's around the time he was world champion, wasn't he? After the before the
yeah,
Machida fight, was it? Yeah.
yeah. He'd been murdering folks basically at that
Yeah.
point. You know, he'd already come over from Pride after beating like Rampage and Arona and everyone basically.
Hmm.
And it was one of those like where I remember him walking around. This might have actually been before he got to the UFC. Maybe it wasn't though, because he was walking around and at kind of backstage, and not a lot of people were going over to him. And I remember like thinking, "Fuck it, I'm going to get a picture with him." And like bowled over
Yeah.
and got a picture. He didn't really speak English, so it was quite hard to explain to him, just like gesturing like that wildly and getting. But now, if he was to walk in somewhere like that, it would be like a mob. You know what I mean? It'd be one of
Yeah.
those. So I think I'm quite
It's
lucky
mad.
in that sense.
Yeah, I think that was Bama 6 because if I remember correctly, Bama 5, the people who stayed at the hotel didn't have a sauna, so people had to go across to the
Yeah,
gym and use the
yeah,
sauna in the gym. But then Bama 6, I remember because we had a guy on there as well. I think he fought Sam Watlin, and he's not fought since that card. Um, and that's the one that Ninja was on. And I remember because my brother got a picture with Shogun as well. And my brother had one of the white bad boy shirts, and he got that signed by him. That
oh,
was pretty
nice.
cool. Yeah,
It's funny to think like now you don't really get the opportunity, but being like back when fighting was a bit more niche in terms of its following and things like that. So you go to the Seni show, and I remember Ernesto Hus was walking around there. He'd retired at this point, but no one knew who the hell he was. He was walking around,
hmm
and I was just like, Ernesto, and he turned around. I was like, "Can I get a picture?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, you got a picture." And I was asking him like, you can fight again. I think he was maybe 40 at this point, maybe a little older. And he was saying like he's only going to fight if they gave him $1 million, and he's kind of like
hmm
retired at that point. Um, but then like after he walked off, people were coming over to me and they're like, "Who's that guy you're getting a picture with?" And I was like, "It's like the greatest Thai boxer of all time, or
yeah,
kickboxer, I suppose, Dutch kickboxer. He's like one of the greatest that's ever lived, and no one, people just didn't know. I think like
it's
now
mad.
you don't really get that now. I think that the whole world's a bit more woke to it, so you can't really like jump the queue as much when it comes to getting those kind of moments, unfortunately.
No,
But
no. Because I remember like when Bama was in town and stuff in UFC, and you'd see like Andre Winner walking through town, and I remember at Bama 5, like Ken Shamrock was there, and I got a picture with Ken Shamrock, and you just walk around and you'd be like, oh shit, there's like there's this guy with like the entourage and stuff, like because Daly was on the card. Oh, and Nottingham lads were down and stuff, and you'd be like, there's him, and people were like, it's
yeah,
MMA. They didn't know, and you'd be like, holy fuck, all these guys are here. Like it was mad.
yeah. Well, it's like I still remember backstage at. I don't think it was UCMMA at the point. I think it was still Cage Rage. Maybe it was UCMMA. But Mark Coleman was there, so it was when Phil Baroni was fighting Scott Jansen, and ended with like a bit of a ruckus in the ring. But Mark Coleman was backstage and he was drunk and he stole my beer for a picture, and I was like, I asked him for a picture. I was like, Coleman, can I get a picture? And he was like, "What are you drinking?" I was like, "Beer." And he's like, "I'll trade you it for the beer." And I was like, obviously looking back and realizing that he had all these troubles with alcohol probably wasn't the best thing to do. But at the time, young
No.
kid, it's like, holy shit, the godfather of ground and pound is taking my beer to get a picture. I'm all in for that. Um, but the thing I remember really specifically about that event was Josh Thompson was there. And again, no one knew who the hell he was.
Yeah.
But he was stood there. And I remember walking past him and thinking like, man, I'm going to have to drop down to featherweight. This guy's freaking enormous. Like he's probably right. Like it might have been my mind playing tricks on me, but I remember very distinctly thinking this is the biggest lightweight I've seen in my entire life. And I come away from thinking like I'm gonna have to go to featherweight at this. I'm way too small to scrap with guys like that.
And even the featherweights now are massive, man. So you'd be down to bantamweight, flyweight. You'd be with me. You'd be me in the flyweights.
Oof, man, yeah, it's like the thought of even trying to get myself down to lightweight is not fun. But like I say, you realise it. Like people get better at cutting weight, because I approached it very much the same as everyone who did at that point, like an absolute dickhead, and basically just
Mhm.
starving yourself and dehydrating yourself to the point where it's like there's probably a better way to do this. And now
Yeah,
10 years on, I've kind of figured out how to do it, and it's like, oh yeah, so it's basically the polar opposite of what I was doing.
yeah.
Who knew?
Everyone was just like, ah, I'll be alright. Just sauna it. Just sauna it off. Salt
Yeah,
bath.
yeah.
I'll be alright. Be alright.
What could possibly go wrong with sitting in a sauna suit and a hoodie and everything like that and trying to get 10 pounds out of your body?
I
It's like
know.
yeah, nothing. Yeah, I suppose like, I suppose with your boxing match, that was something you didn't have to worry about in terms of like cutting weight or anything like that. Which
No, I had to lose a little bit, but not much, not much. But I've cut weight in the past in like supporting teammates and stuff, being in the sauna with them, like not in a suit, but I still be in there in trackies and a hoodie and stuff, and still be very uncomfortable. But just do it so they weren't sat in there with it on their own. I remember there was one of the lads, he was in this chat before. I don't know if he's still in it. Called Tom Morkill. He was fighting for us. I think he was a bantamweight. And I remember once I was in there just helping him cut weight in the sauna. And I was like, right, mate, you got 5 more minutes, like 5 minutes left. And he must have been in that much like disarray with it that 30 seconds went by and he was like, right, we've got to be done now. And I was like, mate, it's been 30 seconds. And he was like, Harry, if you don't let me out now, I'm going to lamp you. And I was like, fucking hell. I was like, open the door, lad. Let you go through.
That was very much like, I think some of the best like friendships in MMA I've formed have been in the sauna, when you, especially with your teammates and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
man.
Because it's like you get a real honest conversation with them, because when you're that depleted and stuff like that, and you're scared for one because you've got a fight coming up, you're worrying if you're going to make weight as well, so you know you're massively stressed and stuff, and you're sitting there going through that with someone, trying to keep them calm, you know, because like when I was cutting weight, I would go mental. Like I would sit there and I'd be like, right, I don't want to come out of it, because if I come out and weigh myself, I then have to deal with coming back in and that wave of heat. So I'd always stay in there as long as I could, and I would just count the drops of sweat off my head if I was in there by myself, you know, and it'd be like trying to work out like, how many drops equals a pound, and I can't remember how much I worked it out as, but when you got someone from your team that would sit there with you and just like shoot the shit and stuff like that, it goes such a long way, and you end up forming these bonds of like someone going through that awful process with you. You know, it's there's a lot to be said for it.
Yeah, like my problem was I'd sit in the sauna with them, and like I'd probably sweat a few pounds out sitting there in the hoodie and that as well, straight after a workout as well. But then I never weighed myself afterwards. I'd just be like, I'd be fine. So I probably cut a fair bit in saunas and just been like, I'll just go home and eat. But I could go home and eat, whereas they couldn't. So it was one of them things.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, cutting a few pounds for you in a sauna would be like 20% of your body weight. You know, you're not a big dude, so it's.
No.
But it's like proportionately when it comes to cutting weight, they say that with lighter guys, like a 5 pound cut for a lighter guy is not the same as a 5 pound cut for a bigger guy,
Oh
because
no,
they've got less to
definitely
cut.
not.
You know, it's a bigger percentage of their body weight. There was like the UFC event just gone, when I can't remember the name of the fighter, but she collapsed twice, didn't she, at the weigh-in, and got stretchered off. You know, it's a brutal thing, man. I do think that ONE FC have probably got the right kind of outlook with it, trying to filter it out of competition. But even then, there's always going to be people trying to figure out a way to get around it, isn't there?
Yeah, always the way. It's always the way. It's like what's the word for it? It's like legal cheating. I think that's what they
Yeah,
call it.
yeah. Well, that was the thing. Is like originally they'd have weigh-ins on the day of a fight, especially in boxing, and people were still cutting weight, and they figured, right, look, we'll give them 24 hours to recover before the fight. You know, that seemed like a sensible thing to do, and then people took that and thought, oh, fuck it, I can drop an extra 5 pounds now. I've got 24 hours to recover. You know, people just
Yeah,
started cutting weight even more. It's like, this is the exact opposite of why we did this. We tried to do this to
yeah,
keep you guys safe, and you're taking the piss now.
yeah. Just not a fan. Just not a fan of weight cutting in general. Just I'm all about putting the pounds on the minute, especially the
Yeah.
minute as well, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it at the minute.
Well, to be fair, like I think I've gone on an accidental bulk over this COVID. So because I haven't been able to do anything for the last week, I haven't been able to leave the house, but haven't felt up to training. Been very sleepy, and I'm always very. I don't enjoy adjusting my calories in a negative way. So like I have in my mind, like I can eat 3,000 calories, which is about right for me. Um, if I move less, I can reduce my calories and maintain my weight, but I don't like reducing my calories. So it's like, and my tracker was telling me off. So using Whoop, and every week it gives you an analysis. And this week it popped up with the analysis. It's like, your level of activity is 95% down this week compared to what it was last week. And I was like, no shit, Whoop, I've got COVID. You know, I'm not
Yeah,
exactly going to be smashing it. But at the same time, I'm thinking like, I had a few days where I had no appetite at all. And then after that, I just started like, I was like, right, I'm not going to starve myself. Even if I'm not hungry, I'm going to eat. And, and instead of approaching it sensibly, like, I'm going to eat like a reasonable amount, I'm going to, no, I'm going to keep eating what I would normally eat. So keep like just shoveling it down. And long term, I was like, that's probably not the best. I need to get myself moving again.
you're a PT. You're a PT, Costa. You've got to practice what you preach, man.
No. See, I'm very much of the do what I say, not what I do type category.
That's it.
Yeah.
I
No,
like
but
it.
I'm lucky in the sense that when it comes to like, because I am very active, and it sounds bad to say it, but like when people struggle to lose weight, the basics of it is it's just like an energy imbalance, and there are a lot of things that can factor into it. But the fact of the matter is, like, if your weight is going up, then you're taking in more energy than you're expending. If your weight is kind of stabilized, you're at a pretty good balance, and if your weight is reducing, you're in a deficit. So if you're finding yourself to the point where your weight is going up, the two things you can do is, and as bad as it sounds, they're pretty simple. You can move more, you can eat less. There's a lot of things that are going to influence those decisions. Like when you're in a deficit, you don't want to move more. You know, you're going to feel shit like a lot of the time. But for me, it's like I move a lot when I'm not dying, so I can get away with quite a lot of calories, you know, which I'm happy about. And even for me, 3,000 is a bit of it's definitely a limit. Like I can overshoot quite easily, you know, if I'm not mindful. I'm very much a foodie, so there you go.
It's got to be done, on it. It's got to be done. You've got to enjoy your food while you can.
Oh, 100%. That's the one thing. Touch wood. I'm gonna make sure that I don't jinx this, but I haven't lost my sense of taste yet with COVID. So if that goes, that's it. I'm gonna be done. I'll just give up on the world. Like the thought of, because some people have winding me up. Like they're saying to me like, oh yeah, you know, I lost my taste when I basically recovered from everything. And I was like, if you're jinxing me now, I swear down. Like I can't be doing that. I don't wanna
No
have a
way.
tasteless life. It's like, 'cause what joy is there in life without taste?
Exactly, man. Not for me. Not for me. I'm not about that life.
Right. On that note, I am going to go and get some food. So for everyone that tuned in, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for jumping in, Harry.
Thank you for
Again,
having me,
so
man.
at
Thank you
Harry
for having
Williams
me.
MMA on Insta, if anyone wants to find you and add you, please do, guys. Like I say, he's a super inspirational guy, and the fact that if you can beat up an able-bodied dude with 1.5 hands, that's someone you need to follow. So get in there and give him a follow.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
All right,
I
Harry, take it
appreciate
easy,
it.
man.